Hit that, send that. Good. Hello, welcome back, everybody. This is the fucking least consistent streamer girl on the planet. But you already knew that. The people who watch me, the people have not watched me for my consistency in some time. I stopped my Dave Matthews Band listening session for this. I appreciate that you prioritize the stream. Welcome back, Ash Kitty. How's your day? Watched a video earlier that said if I don't hate people, then I hate people. What? My day's going pretty good. It's unfortunately or fortunately, whatever, it's raining outside. Which might, depending on how long it's raining, it might put a damper on my plan. Pun not intended. A damper on my plans today to go get a hydrophobic bike tarp. I rode my bike to the movies not too long ago. I don't know if I've even streamed since then. Yeah, in fact, I think that was last Wednesday. I didn't stream Wednesday because I had a movie ticket and I went to the movies. And I rode my bike there, but I realized I had left my bike out for a long time. Since I live in a walkable area, I haven't really needed to use my bike very much, you know? So I found out that because it didn't have anything covering it, there was a bunch of pollen all over it. So I was like, oh, that's annoying. And I had to wipe it down. And it just occurred to me, like, yeah, it'd probably be a good idea to get a hydrophobic bike tarp for my bike so I can leave it out there and not worry about it getting all covered in pollen and that sort of thing. It was a long bike ride, but ultimately quite enjoyable. I think that was my exercise for the week for sure. And it's funny you should mention Amazing Digital Circus and the Backrooms, because the Backrooms is the movie I went to watch. I bought a ticket to go see it in theaters, and holy shit. This is the first time I've actually seen a horror movie in theaters. Or I guess any kind of thriller, really. Yeah, no, I didn't even see, as much as I love Sinners, I didn't even see Sinners in the theater. I saw that on streaming in like a home theater kind of environment. Yeah, and I enjoyed it a lot. I talked about it with some friends after the fact, and I do agree with some of their critiques about the writing and the script. It felt like the movie kind of, by virtue of the concept of the Backrooms movie, it kind of was inevitably going to bite off more than it could chew, but the direction is incredible. And Kane Pixels, the creator of the Backrooms, he hasn't even graduated high school yet. Bro is 17 or 18. Hey, 1v3, welcome back. 30 months of being a mod on the channel. How about that? That's almost 3 years. We talking Backrooms? Yes, we are. That was why I didn't stream last Wednesday. Because I rode my bike to see a like mid-afternoon kind of matinee showing of the Backrooms. Yeah, okay. Gotron, imagine telling your teacher not only that you made a movie that made it to the big screen with like a major studio, but that movie grossed over $1 billion. You want to see that so badly? I would highly recommend it. I think it's a great watch. So I will not spoil anything. But yeah, I follow some film and media channels on Twitter. Yeah, look, Kane Parsons has made more money from this movie than every teacher at his high school will in their lifetime. Unless they like luck into some stock market shit. I heard some people give the dumbest complaints about too much walking. Man, why did they put all this walking in my Backrooms movie? Why is there so much liminal space in the Backrooms? Hello? I didn't pay for this. Guy who has no idea what the Backrooms is. And it's actually quite heartening to see that the film establishment and the sort of artistic establishment is being upset at the same time as the political establishment. Because like, there are some similar things happening there. You know, the people meme about like Hollywood and shit. But a lot of the major artistic industries have been financialized over time to the point that like a lot of them produce slop, and it's genuinely like you have to kind of actively search for the diamond in the rough. But now like indie creators, people are sort of rediscovering that you can make good art on not that big of a budget. You know, you don't need all of those resources. Oh my God. Thank you for the resub, Ash Kitty. I need to get a custom resub notification. Backrooms getting this big is amazing for the indie creators. Yes, it is. Backrooms and Iron Lung both. I've yet to watch Iron Lung, but I did purchase it on YouTube. But like the fact that these indie projects are successful can demonstrate something very important, which is that people like good art. Good art is good, irrespective of whether it has the blessing of a lot of executives and investors. You know, Hollywood and a lot of other artistic industries of media production have been so captured by these financial interests that now they're not really engaging with art. They are engaging with product and production, something to make return on investment. That's why movies like The Mandalorian and Grogu are so bad, you know, because they're not made with artistic direction. That's why Mandalorian started good and fell off. And it's why Andor was good throughout, is because those started with a plan in mind. Season 1 of The Mandalorian is peak because it's supposed to be a Western set in the chaotic setting of the immediate post-Endor Star Wars universe. You know, when the New Republic is still fledgling and hasn't yet captured the influence it would need to start stabilizing the galaxy, whereas the Empire has been shattered into these various remnant states. And so that creates a sort of power vacuum that's going to be very chaotic for a while until somebody can centralize. Forget with Iron Lung that it was an India project. Yeah, that's Markiplier. If only the Amazing Digital Circus couldn't have had such a bumpy ride. Yeah, I've heard a little bit about that, not a whole lot. There is some funny shit that happened, but I don't watch Amazing Digital Circus, so I wouldn't know. How hot is it out there? I am looking at my weather notification is currently 84 degrees Fahrenheit, which is let's see. It's like 29. Okay, yeah, I was gonna say that, like, isn't that almost 30? But yeah. Yeah, no, 86 is 30 degrees because you add 18. 32 degrees Fahrenheit is 0. 50 degrees Fahrenheit is 10. 68 degrees Fahrenheit is 20. And 86 degrees Fahrenheit is 30. And 104 degrees Fahrenheit is 40. We do sometimes hit temperatures like that in America. But that touches on a topic that I intend to talk about later. Never mind, wasn't Markiplier is actually a big corporation? No? I mean, Markiplier had more of a budget than Kane Parsons, but, you know, he wasn't like the studio. I promise you, the big studio bigwigs did not like how successful Iron Lung was either, because Iron Lung wasn't made to be product. It wasn't made to be return on investment. Making joke about the earlier comment. Okay. Gotcha. So yeah, 1v3, that conversion would be correct. Yeah, I saw the Backrooms. That's what I did last Wednesday. I enjoyed it. I had to like cover my eyes for a lot of it. God, the suspense is phenomenal. I don't want to say too much again because there's people who have yet to see it, but I essentially tried to do the real life version of a thing I do when I'm watching YouTube horror videos. Sometimes, like, there's a certain inconvenience to getting jump scared. No spoilers, Gotron. 1v3 hasn't seen it yet. I essentially, there's a thing I do with sometimes on like horror YouTube where I will open the video and scroll down so that just the like play button and the control bar is visible, so you can see like a tiny sliver at the bottom of the video. And that's how I like listen to some of the at the very least, the horror content that I haven't seen yet, that I'm not like rewatching. So when I don't know when the jump scares are going to pop up, because if it's just the suspense, I can handle wading through dread and suspense horror, watching it on like the second monitor in full. But the jump scare actually does, there's a reason it's called the jump scare. It does actually make me jump sometimes. And that's just really annoying. I know that they serve a vital function in horror to punctuate and release tension in an effective way. Many horror games and movies misuse them, but they serve a purpose. The problem is them serving that purpose often inhibits me playing a game that I'm doing on my primary monitor, like Super Smash Bros, SimCity, Minecraft, whatever it is. Want to at least watch Iron Lung or Backrooms in vacation? Why not both? Yeah. So fun movie theater experience. The people at the movie theater were also super nice. And I actually think that there's a phenomenon with people in retail where um, the blue collar working class who do not like the working class who do not have public facing jobs are much more liable to be reactionary. And it like in the jobs that don't necessarily require a college education, you know, you have retail, you have construction, you have other sorts of manual labor. I think the people in not public facing jobs, you know, especially outside of retail, are much more likely to be conservative because they are less, they are not interacting as much with other people and with society by necessity as retail workers. Were you class checking everyone in the movie theater? Close. I was ideology checking them. I like genuinely, I was worried. Every time I go out, I'm a little bit worried that somebody will either clock me or try to clock me when we're talking. But with these theater folks, there was no such trouble. In fact, there were actually a couple of Zoomers with a broccoli cut that I could tell were, you know, they internal humana going on for me. Uh, but yeah, I did sort of like ideology check them just by talking to them. And sure enough, they passed the ideology check because these folks are retail workers. They work at the concession counter. They have to talk to a lot of people on the regular. Um, uh, uh, and so when that's the sort of environment that you work in, a very sociable working environment where you have to talk to people a lot, you are more likely to be accepting of other different like kinds of people. Everybody, even if they aren't aware of it, everybody has an ideology, as ill-formed, ill-conceived as it may be. And retail workers cannot afford to maintain a bigoted and hateful ideology because that inhibits them from doing their job. And their ability to do their job determines whether they get to pay rent. It is literally a matter of survival that you understand that different kinds of people exist and you don't dedicate part of your political identity to hating them. You know, so retail workers tend to be much more progressive than, you know, like construction workers, manual laborers, people who don't have a lot of, who don't necessarily have to engage with customers all the time. Also, it turns out that this movie theater is like being screwed over raw by the production companies that they contract with. Apparently, like a lot of the reason that concessions are so expensive is because that's the only place they can really make their revenue. Ticket sales, that like 50 to 60% of that goes to the production companies. And the theaters have to make do with concessions, like the snacks. That's legitimately, that's how the movie theaters make money. It's kind of crazy, you know? Don't assume it makes an ass out of you and me. Hey, uh, that's true. That's a well-known saying. But assumptions are also what make us human. We have to sort of make some kinds of logical leaps and connections where we don't have perfect information. I was going to scroll up through these messages because I saw some things that like piqued my interest that were actual subjects that I wanted to talk about regardless. Oh, I thought that was like a misspelling, but no, you meant Ming from the Amazing Digital Circus. Oh, okay, okay. That's also true. Assuming makes an ass out of you and Ming. That's the truth for sure. Truth nuke type shit. You know what? I'm just gonna go to my fucking list of things to talk about. I was planning maybe to show off some SimCity stuff on stream. In fact, I could do that now. I actually had an idea for SimCity. I want to. I think I want to show off the two regions that I have finished, and then one that I'm currently working on. And also go over an update that I found out about, like something that my critique of SimCity 4 actually got wrong, which I can do that first while the game's loading. Apparently, I talked about mixed use zoning and how the game kind of incentivizes mixed use zoning without actually having it because it likes when things are close together, commutes are short, and like people can get to their jobs very quickly and can move around the city without having to take too long. Apparently, that's not just an artifact of that game design. Apparently, SimCity 4 has in the game code mixed use zoning. There's a unique zoning type that has gone unused in the final release that is mixed use. The problem is, get ready to fucking fume at EA. The first thing that EA did when they bought Maxis, leading up to the development of SimCity 4 being finished, leading up to its release, is they hard disabled the code for mixed use zoning. The code is there, but they disabled it. And because SimCity is so old, it's essentially like lost media now, and it sort of existed at the start of those, like, what, DRM protections, whatever. It's very hard to decompile, like, take an actual look at the game engine itself. It's hard to, like, deconstruct the game for modders. So we know that the mixed use zoning type exists, but people still don't know how to enable it. So we could have had some incredible looking, like, European style cities in SimCity 4. And it's still perfectly possible and incentivized to make, like, walkable cities and stuff with robust transit networks in SimCity 4. But we can't have the mixed use, the shops with the apartments on top because of EA. That was not a Maxis thing. Maxis made the mixed use zoning all complete and functional, and then EA was like, nah, take it out of the game. And that really shows in the direction that they took with SimCity 2013. Because SimCity 2013 is much more reminiscent of City Skylines 2, parentheses derogatory. Those games took a lot from SimCity 2013. But yeah. Where's my redlining update? That exists. You can, in fact, do redlining in SimCity 4 or in any city builder game. And I will tell you, if you want to be evil, I will tell you how to do it. So, like in real life, you want to cut the city in half or into pieces with a highway system, right? On one side of the highway system, where you want all the poor, marginalized people to be living, you put the less desirable zone types, mostly dirty industry, dirty and maybe a little bit of manufacturing, right? That way, the desirability decreases for everybody but the poorest people. So the rich Sims would not move to that part of town. And then on the other side of town, on the other side of the highway, you have the more desirable developments. Maybe you have, a corner where there's some high-tech industry. Then you have all the office jobs. And to make sure that the southern, or whatever, the impoverished area isn't completely devoid of commercial activity, maybe you give them some, like, low wealth, like commercial services, like small restaurants, gas stations, that sort of thing, right? You can do that. You would have to be an evil bastard, but you can do that. It is a thing that you can do in the game. Why you would do it, I'm not entirely sure. Let me disable my capture card here so you can see what I'm looking at. My mouse has been doing this annoying thing, like this random double click. Anyways, this is the first region I want to show. Teller, Alaska. Check out this transportation view. Sometimes there's this little bug that causes some normal roads to show up as black, where ordinarily it's just the highways that are black and the regular roads are gray. And the railroads are red, and the blue is all the ferry routes and stuff. But look at this. Isn't this cool? Look at that. Look at those big ass cities. Well, they're not actually that big. The biggest tiles, this is 4 kilometers by 4 kilometers. So it's not huge. I mean, I guess the city itself is pretty big. This is the size of a big city. But yeah, I named all these. These are all like banking puns. Teller, budget analyst, floating teller, commercial broker, that sort of thing. And then I made jokes about the fucking YouTube poop about the Fresh Prince of Bel-Air. Fuck Philip Banks. Banks wants to empty the banks, fill our streets with banks, and run a bank making operation out of his banks, etc. I even threw in some smaller, like rural towns for flavor. Hello, Glue Sniffer. Welcome to chat. Your name gives me some concerns for your health. I hope you limit your activities in doing that. Type shit. Always happy to see new faces. Yeah, what a name. But yeah, this had a lot of firsts for me. I can't afford glue anymore. I'm sorry. You fucking blew your entire budget on glue. Yeah. This city had a lot of firsts. First, like successful city, first successful experiment in mid-density zoning. First successful experiment in transit planning. I sort of laid out before I even God, I had to think of all the city and mayor names beforehand, because I laid out the railroads first. Like I went into each tile and was like, this is what the railroad network's gonna look like. So I built the railroads to be like, oh yeah, this is like how goods will be people and goods will be ferried around. And then I sort of built the cities around them to sort of take shape in a way that hugged the railroads or whatever. Gotta break in and steal it. Well, I'm sorry to say I actually don't have any glue for you to steal. I also don't have peptides, so my apologies. If I had glue, then I'd be able to fix this. This is tiny little button that popped off of my leverless fighting controller. I've been meaning to find some kind of like Gorilla Glue or something to stick that back on there. But yeah, and in the end, this became a metropole of 4.4 million people, all zoned and designed to the best of my ability with the tools that the game offers. Zoned and designed much like a European city would be. Obviously, there's like not like middle ages old town European cities, but the better built what Europeans call new builds would look something like this, where I tried to, even though the game uses streets as the basic building block, I tried to have everything like walkable and stuff. Europe mentioned? Yeah. Europe is a big inspiration for me playing this game. Europe and like Chicago and New York. So all of these cities, even the smaller like rural towns, are walkable. There's robust transit networks. Even though there's like roads, you can take the bus anywhere you need. There's subway as well. If there were above ground light rail, that would be highlighted in blue. The blue dash lines is ferry, but then there'd be like a solid blue to represent like light rail. But subways are underground, so it doesn't highlight that on the map. But there are subway networks. So you have 2 like commuter alternatives to car. Well, actually 3, because things are close enough that people can just walk. And then long distance rail is actually the best option, or the airport if you're in one of these cities. Because a lot of the roads are kind of weird, Also, this, you can tell with this city, there's a really squiggly bit of avenue here because I had to work around the railroads. Yeah, but then, so after I was done with that, I was like, okay, I got the hang of medium density zoning, and that was quite fun to use. I really like the scale of the apartment buildings that get built with medium density zoning. It's really nice. Then I moved on to planning for other regions. I showed off some of the region plans the last time I talked about SimCity, but then I moved on to this. Fairview is the smallest region in the game and probably the most restrictive. I wanted to impose a new challenge on myself. Fairview was going to be my experiment with high density zoning. Everything, with the exception of like the rural towns, everything in these cities is high density zoning, unless there are farms. I started adding more mods as well. So there's like farming mods that allow farms to build to much larger levels than the default game. And in a region a quarter the size of the standard region size, which Teller, Alaska is, I managed to construct a metropole of 2.2 million, complete with basically a central tile, Little Houston, Little Chicago, and Little New York. And so that the Eurobros don't feel left out, a lot of the tiles surrounding Little Houston and the central area are European style, like buildings, like these buildings. I try to use the same philosophy of transit. I'm downloading the ethics mod. Yes, I'm downloading the fucking mods that make the game playable. And then I kind of destroyed my game with mods, but yeah. I also made a little like island city over here that I thought was cool and that I again like used Chicago style buildings for. But yeah, despite the restrictiveness of a lot of the like small size city tiles, I think this experiment went pretty well, you know, because the mods that I'm using, the two biggest ones are the network add-on mod and the Colossus add-on mod. Colossus add-on mod adds a bunch of new like building stages. A lot of these buildings are not possible. They're too big for the default SimCity game. And notably, again, except for the rural areas, I do not have any highways. This is not an American city. These are only avenues, you know? The game is like, please build suburban neighborhoods normally. No, actually. The game, there is one type of suburb that the game rewards you for building, and that is a rail suburb. Sometimes in Europe, you see these where there's like a tram line. Europe and Canada as well. There's like a tram line, a light rail that goes into a suburb. And it sort of terminates at a station, and there's like a suburb that's built up around that station. So it's like a bedroom community. There's maybe not that much happening there, but if you want to go into the city, it's a 10-15 minute train ride, right? So it still kind of fits into like 15-minute city. Well, actually, no, it might not, because for 15-minute cities, you have to be able to walk, but transit is available, right? That's a rail suburb. The game actually punishes you pretty hard for building car-dependent suburbs, right? If you build a car-dependent suburb, you have like a block the size of a super block and a bunch of like the squiggly streets for suburbs in there. That means the only feasible mode of transportation for Sims is a car, which means all of the roads are going to be clogged up all the time, which is going to create a ton of noise, a ton of pollution, and Sims aren't going to want to live there. So in SimCity 4, you do not want to build car suburbs. They had to like take some of these features out in SimCity 2013 and like City Skylines to make suburbs work in that game. Despite there being significantly less space per city tile to work with in City Skylines, you are much more incentivized to build suburbs that eat up that space. You know, that's why, like, I look at some of God, it's so hard to find a good City Skylines video because the game is so hard coded to be car dependent that you see, like, I made the city of my dreams, and you look at the thumbnail and it's just concrete. There's just highways everywhere, and it's like, this is disgusting. Wonder if anyone had awakenings to the system because of this game. I wouldn't doubt it. There are a lot of urbanists that play city builder games, and I actually really like that because I love urbanists and urbanism. But there are some people that had the opposite reaction. I posted about this on Twitter because one night I was considering potentially buying City Skylines under one condition, and that condition was that I could like rid the game of the disease that is car dependency, right? I went scoping out for some mods that remove what's called the pocket car phenomenon. In order to make traffic work, people in city skylines just have their cars in their pocket at all times. If they're walking and at any point they determine that it would be faster to drive to their destination, a car just appears and they start driving, you know? And the game was like, yeah, we did this so you wouldn't destroy your cities with parking. And people are like, man, it sucks that like, you know, it sucks. Essentially, the reaction from the city skylines community was like, it sucks that pocket cars are a thing because it's dumb. It looks super dumb. It's unrealistic. And it makes cities hard to plan. But the alternative would be to have to build parking lots everywhere. And I was sitting there looking at it like, yes, that would be better. That would be better if you had to build parking lots for cars. That way you would realize that you can't fucking build cities around cars. You can't do that. So unfortunately, it doesn't look like, it seems like, at least for city skylines, it's had the opposite effect where people are like, man, you know, essentially it's just like, man, traffic's really bad. And then they do not investigate that sort of phenomenon beyond, ugh, that's annoying. And it's like, all right, I'm never getting this game. And by never, I mean, I'm not getting it unless I can find like a mod that removes pocket cars and requires you to build a shit ton of parking to make cars work, which means I'm probably never going to buy that game. This is way more interesting than the lessons my geography teacher gave us about how cities are designed and such. Really? I've been watching a lot of urbanist YouTube, which of course I recommend people do because that's super interesting. But yeah, basically, fuck Le Corbusier.
Uncle Phil, you got to kick that man's butt!
The grids are cool, but fuck Le Corbusier. William Penn did it better. The Quakers knew how to build cities. That's all well and good. Chicago's great. Philadelphia's great. European cities are great. Your teacher's conservative. That explains why their classes on cities fucking sucks, because conservatives hate cities. The way that cities have been destroyed in America. Here, let's go Google Earth surfing. I want to talk about this. The reason that American cities look as gross as they do is because of conservatives, right? Ooh, look at that intro. So we got America, right? First, let's take a look at a normal city, a real city. Let's take a look at a city in Spain. If Kayla the Furry were here, she'd be real happy, right? Let's look at Barcelona. One of the largest, most successful experiments in the superblock style of urban planning. So you see these here. These are the superblocks. And if you zoom in, you can see that, oh, look, there's a street here, right? And you can see there's streets here as well. For most of the territory, like between these buildings, a lot of these, yes, we do love the cube. These buildings, these are mixed use developments, you know, apartments, shops, offices, all that sort of thing. And a lot of these have pedestrian-only walkways between them, like pedestrian-only spaces. And those pedestrian-only spaces are surrounded by streets. Like the super block has the street. In between that, it's only walking. And so that way, you've created, like with this very simple geometric pattern, you've created a very easy system to plan transit around and a walkable environment for people that exists at a human scale. Despite the fact that this actually, like, if you look at Barcelona from above, the city's fucking huge and it looks quite intimidating, you know? But if you are actually there on the ground, it exists at a very human level. Used to be a politician, talked a lot about his favorite conservative party, the Christian Democratic Appeal. Ah, I see. Remember what I said about the Christian Democrats in my ideology tier list? They basically don't exist anymore because the Christian Democrats were the right wing's response to social democrats. It was a response to the advance of left-wing politics, that they felt like they had to craft a response beyond just being Nazis. They had to craft some kind of appealing political response to the programs of social democracy, which meant basically, hey, what if we did these like social democratic services, welfare state, and whatever, but it's more car dependent and more more administered at the level of the heteronormative nuclear family to appeal to all the conservatives that fucking hate gay people, right? But because conservative interests lend themselves to hierarchy, authority, and capital, that program dissipated very quickly. Like I said in that stream, it was a sign of things to come. That the Christian Democrats were the first domino to fall to financialization. You know, essentially, as politics started radicalizing into you are either fascist or socialist. There is socialism, there is barbarism. Which one do you choose? Christian democracy was the first thing to go. You know? Because all the conservatives just chose barbarism immediately. Like, look at modern conservative parties. I know that, like, if your teacher's hearkening back to the days of the older Christian Democrats, he probably doesn't approve of the modern conservative parties all too much, right? He probably views them as, like, limp-dicked and feminine or something. But the reality of it is, modern Christian Democrats in the center-right are indistinguishable from neoliberals, right? And they're both indistinguishable from the far-right, and that's because they all chose barbarism. They all chose the barbarism of capital financialization and destroying cities and making people's lives worse so they could chase a bag, you know? But we've looked at a real city. Now let's look at some god-awful American cities. And I know just where to start. For the record, hurts to think back about his conversation with class about immigrants and Christianity. It genuinely shocks me sometimes, the quality of people that they allow to become teachers. Atlanta, for the record, the city has actually been getting better. America, ever since like the end of the Cold War, the American urbanists have been sort of having their time in the spotlight to advocate for re-urbanizing the country. You heard of the story where police were stopping a person from getting someone else's Legos back? I heard that. I heard about that, but I don't know the details. Anyways, let's take a look at how bad American cities are. I have this so that only rails are highlighted right now. Let's go and do this. Behold, Atlanta, Georgia. Most places in the South look like this. In fact, most places in America look like this. Now, it's hard to tell from above, but there is no mixed-use zoning. If you ever see an American city from above, unless it's Philly or Chicago, assume that there is no mixed-use zoning. Every zone type is single use. And if I do this, well, first of all, you can fucking see that the highway cleaves the city in two. But then if I do this, look at this. This is all single family, low density zoning. And these, and by the way, zoning, this isn't like, Houston's a rare example of a city that actually doesn't have zoning laws, and that poses its own set of problems. But zoning laws are partly the reason for this, because the reason that these are all single family homes is that the city planners were like, these can only be single family homes and nothing else. That's the law. The city made the law so that this can only be single family zoning. Even in the city, look at this. Look how much of the city is walled off by highways. The yellow, that's all highways. Structured like neurons. Yeah, if only they fucking functioned as well as neurons do. Is this looks like a rail yard. I think that's a rail yard or shipping dock or something like that. And look at the street structure too. Like the fucking downtown for the most part is laid out in blocks, but even then the street structure like Google Earth is having some trouble. It just fucking doesn't make sense a lot of the time. You know? Like, look at this. This development, this denser development of Midtown Atlanta is entirely cut off from downtown Atlanta. Yeah, Google Earth is trying to, there's so much asphalt, Google Earth's trying not to throw up. Look at this. There are people that live right now. Look. I think these are offices, actually. There are cities like this. I don't know if Atlanta's one of them, but there are people that live right next to this highway. And let's have a look as well, shall we? How many lanes are on either side of this highway? Right? We're not even going to count this middle part. Let's start counting. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Okay? And then 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Oh, wait, I might have miscounted, actually. Oh, yeah, look, there's even more here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. 9 lanes. Yeah, this fucking shit was designed for some Marvel CGI battle shit to happen on the highway. You know? Google Atlanta. You know what's crazy? This exact building exists in SimCity 4. This exact highway highway. Freudian slip. This exact office building can be built in SimCity 4. And it looks pretty cool. See, look, these are apartments. There's people that live right fucking next to the highway. This building here, this white building with the little thing there, these are apartments. Either that or it's a hotel, maybe? No, I don't think hotels have balconies like that. These look like apartments or something. I think. I could be mistaken. Kind of hard to tell with the compression in Google Earth. But yeah, look. Behold, Atlanta. This is what American cities look like. I saw your recommendation. Someone linked you a Jubilee video. I did see that as well. I'm not watching Jubilee. I did that once. You've seen one Jubilee video. You've seen them all. They're literally just like outrage baiting. Oh yeah, and if you zoom out, by the way, that's just Midtown and downtown. That's just the city center. All of this stuff, if you zoom out, right? All of this stuff is considered like suburbs of Atlanta. You know, there are people who live in these surrounding cities: Stockbridge, Fayetteville, Douglasville, Mableton, Smyrna, Marietta, Norcross, that all commute into Atlanta. You have to get on the highway, which, by the way, appropriate to be zoomed out. You see all of this yellow? Those are all highways. Those are all highways. And if I zoom in a little bit, you can see what these suburbs look like. Look at this. All single family housing. Funny someone thought you'd watch that. I think it's just a product of them maybe not remembering the last time I saw Jubilee or whatever. Look, it's perfectly fine and good for people to recommend whatever they want, right? Like I'm not I don't want to throw shade to people for recommending shit, right? But I'm not going to take an interest in all of it. That's just what other people think I might be interested in or what they took an interest in, which is fine. Can't get them out of my algorithm. Yeah, Jubilee does. They're like very much algorithm farming. Oh yeah, by the way, you see this 42? If you see a circle or any sort of thing surrounding a number, that means this is a highway, right? So whenever you see roads from above, if you see a certain shape around the number that a road is, that is a highway. There are different levels of highway, but highways nonetheless. 42 and 78, those are both highways. In fact, they don't have an interchange. This makes a direct intersection here in front of these apartments and this law office, apparently. This is what's known in urban planning as a strode, the fabled strode. Let's get a good street view. Google wants me to take a look at the street view. Let's have a look at it. Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Okay. Oh my god. Dude, look at the fucking traffic too. Look at this. Ugh. 2 lanes on either side. Actually, this is 3 lanes. There's 3 lanes on this side. This, if you ever go to an American city, they look like this. With the exceptions of Philly, New York, Chicago, maybe Seattle, there are a few cities that do not fall entirely prey to this, but this is what American cities look like. Those stoplights are useless. No, people abide by the stoplights. See, they have a green light here. These people are going because they have a green light. This is just when the Google car snapped a photo. People disobey the stoplights either, like as well. Like there are people that don't stop for the stoplights. You know, in fact, a lot of local police departments make the bulk of their revenue outside of their state allocated budget from traffic violations. Like I used to live in like a suburban area. There was one intersection that was like comparably big. There are police cars that will camp out at these intersections fishing for traffic violations. They're like, that was a ticket. You ran a red light. And of course the driver knows that they ran a red light. They're like, oh, fuck. And then they go pay it off in court. Europeans are better is what I'm saying. Oh, that is definitely true. You know, there's traffic direction, all that. The Strode is like, I make a living by being a pain in the butt. Listen, all right? The traffic, like, traffic violation fishing is the one thing where I will unambiguously and uncritically defend police officers. I want them to make car commuters' lives a living hell for what they have done to this country. You know, police like were complicit in the construction of cities that look like this. The least they can do is make it miserable for the people that drive these roads, right? We take those is what I'm saying, right? If anything, it could help people realize like, hey, maybe you shouldn't have to fucking drive everywhere. Because that's an increasing realization that people are making now that like the cars equals freedom line just falls flat because people have to pay on average like $9,000 a year for fuel. I'm not joking, by the way. You can look that up. That's how much people have to pay per year for fuel in America. Just fuel. And again, average. Yeah, I learned from... Oh my God. Look at this. You can't even see the end of that. It goes beyond the next intersection. Gas prices are going up and up. Yeah, this is why I was like genuinely concerned that we might just blow past the shortage and go to zero. People with diesels get owned even harder with prices. Yes, that we get to laugh at for now, but like, look at this. Ugh. In urban planning, this is what's known as a Strode. It has the capacity and speed limits of a highway or just beneath that, but they try to combine it with the access of like a regular ass street, right? Look at this. Somebody lives there. These are houses. There's some modern houses, but these are like houses, duplexes, quadruplexes, apartments. There are people that have to live. Look, wait, look. That's somebody's driveway. That's somebody's garage. Somebody lives there. Somebody has to live on this fucking road. Imagine you have to go left. Imagine you have to get in your car because you have to drive everywhere. And you have to like take a left out of here. Look at this. Oh, and by the way, behold, no sidewalk. There's just a chunk where, oh wait, no, there is a sidewalk. It's just covered in fucking leaves. But that like, and even where there is sidewalk, look how fucking small the sidewalk is. How do you even get out of there? Sparkling Image Car Wash. I'm glad you asked. I've lived in an area that had like Strodes that had houses positioned on them just like this. You don't. You just fucking die. If I had to go left, I'd pull 4 rights. Funnily enough, that's what people end up doing a lot of the time. You know, if they have to go that way, oftentimes what they'll do, if somebody living here had to go that way, so they would like ordinarily have to make a left, what they would do ordinarily is just make a right out of here and take the next right and circle the block and come back out there. But sometimes if you look at the street plan, this is the Strode that we were just looking at, right? If I zoom out and we take a look at some other parts of this suburb, right? Thank fuck there's some semblance of a grid and rectangular shape and like geometric regularity. But if you go to these suburbs, how the fuck do you tell where you're going? How do you tell what you're oriented towards? Look how squiggly and turning the streets are. Look at this. How the fuck do you know where to go if you live here? This is what American cities look like. This is the kind of city that City Skylines incentivizes you to build. This is the kind of city that is killing America. And this is redlining in action, right? Look at the way that this highway was constructed. A lot of these highways were built in the 50s and 60s. These cities have historic districts. These cities have a history, a rich history, even if it's not as long as the histories of European cities. There was a time when cities like Atlanta, cities like Houston, like Dallas looked beautiful and had walkable downtown areas where the streets were all hip and happening with pedestrian activity. People were wearing their dinner jackets and going out to lunch with friends and going to work and probably dying in the factory because there were no labor regulations back then as well. But like, these highways were built to destroy that. People, you see all this space that the highway's taking up, you know, people used to live there. A lot of these highway projects displaced tens of thousands of people. Like each highway displaced thousands. Fossil fuels have a grip on society? Yes. Yeah, rich people fall for the anti-transit propaganda because they assume that that means like, I don't want anybody to drive, which is true. And I do want them to just shut the fuck up. This is not for you. You will take the train. You will like it because taking the train is just better. Use your goddamn legs. I'm so fucking tired of the people that say shit like that. Oh yeah. And by the way, that's just the suburbs that are like really close into Atlanta. If you go out to Collier Heights, look at this shit. What the fuck is even out here? Yeah, they're so they're like, I will rather kill everybody than have to take a mode of transportation that isn't a car. They sue to block any plans that involve getting a bus route or train line extended to their area. Yep, that is true. A lot of the reason that American cities still look like this, it's not for lack of attempts on the part of activists to change it for the better. A lot of the people, those fuck ass people who live in either like these luxury penthouses or fucking, more often than not, wealthy homeowners out here somewhere. This looks like maybe not the, no, maybe homeowners out here, depending on how big the houses are, you might be able to tell. But like fuck ass homeowners who drive their car everywhere will literally take to the court system. They will use legal action to prevent the city from being like, yeah, we want to add some bus lines so that people can get to work more easily. We want to add some bus lines and maybe a tram line so that people can come to downtown and so there can be more activity here. We want to revitalize the city. And the homeowners were like, no. Why? They never, the reason isn't, the given reason isn't consistent because none of it actually correlates to why they don't want to have like public transit networks. They just don't want to be around poor people. Yes, damn, it's almost like fixing anything requires you to be like, all right, fucko, you don't get to own all the wealth anymore, you know? And it super doesn't help that so much of economics in America is tied up in the stock market, in speculative value. Part of the reason that developments like this exist is because in order to have like city centers, right? A lot of times, you know, you get apartment buildings in the city. Here's one. This is an apartment building. Very likely people don't own an individual apartment unit. There are condos, in which case there's some like collective ownership schemes that get applied to housing sometimes, which are very cool and I think should be used more. But oftentimes you would rent an apartment like I do. I rent, which means you don't own your apartment. You don't own the building. You don't own the house, which does mean that you don't have as much responsibility, which is fucking awesome. You don't have to do all of your property management by yourself, which is a job unto itself, by the way. There's an entire career called property management because managing a building that's like, this isn't even a huge, This is not even a huge apartment building, but like managing shit like this is expensive and difficult. But the fact that you don't own it means that you can't make money off of it, right? And housing, the ruling class has determined and dictated and guided policy to this effect over time that the purpose of housing is not for you to live in it, but to be a speculative investment vehicle. These houses are fucking expensive, believe you me. You know, these are houses right next to downtown Atlanta or in a suburb of Atlanta. That shit is going to cost a pretty penny. And because it costs a pretty penny, a lot of people are forced to engage with the scheme of taking on debt to buy a house and leveraging that debt to improve quote unquote the house, and have it appreciate value over time to sell it. But if you address the housing crisis and you revitalize the city, property values go down for like residential property values, right? Because it means more people are renting, more people have more money to spend. When housing is less scarce, property owners can't make as much money from it. And the sad truth of the matter is that single family housing exists to incentivize, you know, making money off of housing as a speculative asset, at least in this sort of configuration. There are smaller, like walkable towns of genuine rarity in America, but like where the density is such that having some detached housing like actually makes sense. Everything's still in a walkable distance, but like the reason that cities build out so much is not because there are no people that want to build up. It's because there's an active force pressing down from above, from property owners, homeowners, and the wealthy, you know, the financializing class of people, to prevent that. Look at how big Atlanta is. Like all of this shit. Oh, by the way, these are highways too, I think. Unless, no, wait, they might not be. No, they were highlighted in yellow. Never mind. They didn't have the number with the shape around them. Might be, but like you can see how far these suburbs extend, right? All the way to, God, all the way to fucking Lawrenceville. The suburbs of Atlanta extend all the way to these satellite cities around Atlanta. Alpha Park. Deadass looks like a maze. Yes. And it is a maze. It's designed to be a maze. Why? Because urban, like city planners, even the ones designing this, knew that cars fucking suck and everybody hates them. So they designed these roads to be so labyrinthine that you would never see another car when you're driving your car, right? That's the reason that these roads are shaped the way that they are, so that no single road is an appropriate like collector for a lot of traffic, right? But it still incentivizes people to drive everywhere. Look, if you live here, what the fuck can you do other than like kill yourself? If you live in this house, right? Shout out to whoever lives here, I guess. Somebody does live there, I suppose. I can see their car in the driveway. If you live here, what the fuck do you do with yourself other than like jerk off? You know? What do you do? What do you do? Oh, great, a driving school. Phenomenal. In a, like, if this were a real city, it would either have 20 times as many people living here, or it would have the same amount of people in 1/20th the area. People who live there thinks it looks good. Yeah, and I say fuck those people. Sorry, you don't get to have the run of the fucking country. You literally don't live in the country. You fucking sleep. You live in the back rooms. Like, look at this. Okay, there's a reason. There is a very good reason. Let's just go to Columbia, South Carolina. Sure, fuck it. Why not? Let's try another city in the South. There's a reason that there's an entire fucking backrooms level, several backrooms levels, in fact, that resemble suburbia. It's because suburbia looks like a fucking weird liminal hellscape that you want to escape from. That's super unsettling. This is a much poorer area, because South Carolina is a much poorer state. But like, look at this shit. You zoom out and it's like, damn, where the fuck am I? Who the fuck? Heatwood, Shandon, Forest Acres. Like, look at this. Can the arrow keys? Yeah, perfect. All right, there we go. For effect. Does this not look like some shit that you would see in the back rooms? Look at this. Now we know where Kane lives. That's true. He lives in literally any city in America. I'm serious. We can look at more cities. They all look like this. I think I've shown you guys the absolute. Not many people were here for the video where I was talking about Mark Warner's housing plan. But look at the fucking absolute disgustingness that is Norfolk and Virginia Beach. You see these like electrical trace? Those are all suburbs. That's all suburbia. This right here, you see this? How there's like a stretch of beach there? This is Virginia Beach. I've been to Virginia Beach. It's actually like pretty cool. I kind of like it. And then you go over here. Are we there yet? I don't think we're even there yet. This is Norfolk and Portsmouth. And then look at the fucking shit in between. New England cities are not safe either. Unfortunately, no, they are not. The South is definitely the worst offender. Like, oh yeah, wow, look at this. Oh my God, it's even worse than I was like, congratulations, urban planners built a circle. They didn't even fucking connect the circle. You see this? These are cul-de-sacs. Look at this. They didn't even draw the whole circle. Look at this. What the fuck? What? Oh no. Oh no. Oh no. Oh no. And this isn't like those new urbanist experiments, right? Where they have a lot of single family developments, but it's like very cleverly built so that there's like a ton of shit within walking distance, even though it might look kind of like this. This is just what you see is what you get. Like they were like doing, yeah, drawing the full circle is illegal. We have to draw 3/3 of a circle and separate them all from each other. So like, if somebody lives in this, like if you're having a get together, let's say somebody at 3401 and 1101 are like having a get together. You could walk to your homie's house. But if you have to like bring anything, let's see the route that you would have to drive, right? You start at 1101. Remember, 3401 is this house right here. They are neighbors. You would have to drive over to this road and then down here and then over past the elementary school and then up here. And then there we go. Now you're at your homie's house. Takes 10 minutes to drive from one cul-de-sac to the other. Yeah, probably like maybe like a couple minutes. Yeah, look how small these cars are. And the speed limits are really low on these neighborhood streets as well, as they probably should be. But like the one thing that people did fucking pay attention to is, yeah, I don't want my kid to get run over. So the speed limits will be like 15 or 20 miles an hour. So yeah, you have to like, you get the idea. That's about how fast. Yeah. Inescapable circle, actually a backrooms level. There are examples of like good urban planning in America though, too. Like I don't want to, I think I showed off there's like a suburb of Philly that looked god awful. Yeah, look at this. There's a lot of that out there. But like if you go into Philly, like actual Philadelphia, holy shit. An actual city. Also, what? Holy shit. That's where I live. The Gayborhood. They literally, did you see that? I swear I'm not tripping. Did you see that? There's actually, let me zoom back in. There's actually a place in Philly called Gayborhood. I promise you. Where is it? Where is it? Fuck, I'm gonna search for this. I need to find Gayborhood. It is absolutely essential that I find Gayborhood, Philadelphia. Yes. You'd say the bad level design in the Backrooms was actually intentional. Yeah. Yeah, no, the finally, we found where the gay people live. Phenomenal. What an example. See this right here. There's still like big streets, but look at this. This is an example of good urban planning. Look at this. You have like middling density housing, apartments and row homes, and you can see they're like not very far from anything. Look, there's a restaurant there. There's like all sorts of shit around them. I think this looks like some kind of factory or office building or whatever. You're in walking distance. Like these blocks are not huge. Playa Bowls, Middle Child. I don't know what that restaurants apparently. There's like local businesses and shit. There's things to do here. Philadelphia is a real city. They exist in America. Now, of course, it's downtown, so it's going to be expensive as fuck to live there. But you get what I'm saying, right? Look, a LGBT community center. Wait, it actually is where all the gay people live. I thought it was some kind of joke. But no, okay, that's actually awesome. This is a historic, like, queer neighborhood. Look at this. It's possible. It's possible. There are real cities. There's good urban planning in America. It does exist. Despite the best efforts of 1950s racists to destroy it, it does exist. Helps that the British were here first and made the initial paths. Yes, that does help. It also does help a lot that Philadelphia's street grid is from the 1890s. A lot of this city, the historic cities in America, these were designed before cars existed. So you had to be very rational, intentional, and like functional, but like about how you made a city. They are indeed slaying the city planning. Philadelphia does in fact serve. But like, look, and you can see that small structure that I saw in Gayborhood, Philadelphia, thank you, is present in all these other areas of Philadelphia too, even outside of the like downtown. In Queen Village, you have this, much the same. There's businesses studded throughout. On the corners, there's businesses and stuff. There's a transit line I just saw. Where is it? There's a little like tram streetcar icon or like bus stop or something. Like Philadelphia has real transit networks too. This is what American cities should look like. Not necessarily, like, I think it's okay that American cities look different from European cities. I think like it's perfectly fine for cities to look all sorts of different ways. But there are some important things that a city must be. And one of them is walkable. Otherwise, it's not a city. It's just a fucking collection of buildings. Like, look. Walk down the block. What is this? Bus stop? Yeah, that's a bus stop. Oh, they have a picture. Oh, nice. Yeah. Formative years preschool. Look at that. VMI barbershop. I don't know why there's a thing called VMI in Philadelphia, but sure. Rich people's mind, the more chance people get to socialize, the higher chance of unions. Gotron, that is literally part of the reason that suburbs were built the way they are. If you know your neighbors, there's more of a likelihood. Like the reason, like this is wrapped up in how redlining happened and why highways were built to go through cities and destroy them, because the wealthy and really racist people knew that if people could socialize, they could organize. And they could organize much more easily if you could walk places, if it was accessible to people with not that much money or means or status. The reason that suburbs like that exist is quite literally to prevent people from organizing, unionizing, and getting to know their neighbors to make political change possible. Just like my Minecraft world, a collection of random bullshit structures. That's the spirit. Yeah, you don't want a city in real life to look like one of those kinds of Minecraft worlds. And again, we've looked at Philly on stream before as a bad example too. Look at all these suburbs, right? These are people that commute to and work in Philadelphia. You know, these people, well, I guess maybe some of them work at the Home Depot out here, right? Like there's stuff out here, I guess, that some of them work at. But like most of these people will be like by and large commuters that go into Philadelphia for work, you know, and then they go home to the suburbs in the evening. They have this is antithetical to having a life. These people have to get on the highway to go to work. There's that number within a shape nomenclature scheme again. This is a highway. If you live in Havertown, you have to get on the highway to get into the city. Yeah, while being stuck in traffic too. Highways do not mean that people can actually get to the city fast. It just means it can fit a lot of cars on it at a time. Oftentimes because of like induced demand as a phenomenon, highways just get fucking clogged, you know? Like most of the time, traffic on highways, like at peak hours, traffic on the highway is fucking stagnant. You know? That's why the just one more lane, bro, doesn't fix jack shit. Or it's one of the many reasons anyway. And look, even as the highway like goes into the city, look, Philly's made like actual pretty active strides to pedestrianize. Look at this. They've shrunk the roads. They're shrinking the roads. And they added a bike lane. You know, this, by the way, this is the highway that I was just looking at that those people would have to take to get into the city. And like when it's in the city, this is not a very big road. This is the size of a lot of the main thoroughfares in Barcelona, which is a resounding, unambiguous success of urban planning, right? I think this looks great. Like the fact that, oh yeah, there's big sidewalks. You can just walk everywhere. This street is a little bit uncomfortably large, but like, then you look at like main thoroughfares should look like this. Except instead of being 2 lanes and they're going one direction, it'd be like 1 lane on either side, right? You can see that from the air there. And then here's the other, like people going the other way. The fact that it's 1 way on either side does actually create problems for the purposes of living in the city. It's this structure, because like the road is split, it makes the city even less interactable than it would be if they just had like 1 lane on either side, right? Because it's like, oh yeah, going in, like you can only access these buildings if you're going this way in your car, you know, whereas or if you're going this way, whereas this one you can only interact with 1 way. Dude, there's a D&D thrift store. That's crazy. A lot of row homes, same basic like block structure. And even here, this is getting like a little bit more car dependent, but you can see that the same structure is present. Like this basic like block shape that's not too long, definitely very skinny, but also like not too long. And there's businesses dotted throughout them because these buildings are clustered close together and like everything's close to everything. These businesses get a lot of foot traffic. And so like this, basically what I'm saying is when your city is made of shapes like this, you go into the city and it's made of shapes like that, these walkable, identifiable geometric patterns where people like you can interact with it at a pedestrian level. That is the real economy. Like that's the real shit. You know, that's a rail yard, not the highway. Where's the fucking highway interchange? I thought I saw it from above. Here we go. Here's a big one. This shit. This is the fake economy, right? This is the like economy where, oh yeah, the economy is doing great. And you look closer and it's just people having to spend a shitload of money on fuel and car repairs, right? This is the fake economy right here. Exists to prop up the speculative value of housing as a financial asset, exists to drain money from people's pockets into the automobile industry through fuel costs and maintenance costs and whatever the fuck. Right? And this, let's go back to Gayborhood. What I'm saying is Gayborhood is the real economy. Thank you. Welcome. Thank you for coming to my TED Talk. And this does pertain to everything collapsing in America, because like it has to do with financialization. Everything's getting more and more like financialized. Everything is the stock market now. You know, everything is gambling type shit. Man, cities are so cool. I fucking love cities. Ohio, yeah. Chicago, behold civilization. Again, kind of. See, the roads are a bit, well, that's a lot of parking lots. See, this is like the greatest sin of Chicago right here. But then you go out here and look at that. Street blocks, walkable street blocks. It's like every reason why this is collapsing. You go back to layers, it just goes back to rich people. Yes, it does. All of this, all of the flaws in cities today, in cities and suburbs, and like in the structure of society, everywhere you see like one of these highways cutting through a city that makes life worse. All of that ultimately ties back to there being a class of people that control society and has a fundamentally different relationship to it than everybody else. You know, a class of antisocial retards that decided you don't get to have fun because your social groups, your social identity is inconvenient to our stock portfolio. And so they destroyed cities. Just not in a particularly cinematic way, you know? Yeah, that's a large part of it. Sparkly image car wash. The cities, like I said earlier, cities in America used to look beautiful. But then in the days of civil rights organizing, the rights of marginalized groups started to advance at least a little bit. And after the passage of the Civil Rights and Voting Rights Act in the 1960s, of 64 and 65, there were legal mandates to integrate the cities. Businesses, public services, whatever, could no longer say, we do not serve colored people. That used to be a thing. I'm sure if anybody's heard of segregation, you've seen the infamous photos, whites only, coloreds only, you know? There was a system of racial apartheid in America, and the end of that apartheid didn't come all at once. In many ways, it still exists, but instead of the whites only signs, let me go back to Atlanta here. Instead of having whites only signs outside of the businesses, now they have highways that cut off the wealthy parts of town from the less wealthy parts of town. And because of Jim Crow, there's a lot of overlap between a lack of wealth and being a racial minority. Homer v. Plessy. I don't know the names of the individual cases for the most part, but yes. Atlanta Stadium. Wow, Mercedes. This is also far from the worst stadium you'll see in America. Where's Dodger Stadium? Let's go look at Dodger Stadium. You guys want to know why like America has no local sports culture? I'll show you why. There's a huge road near me that was supposed to be I-695. Ooh. I mean, I guess it's good that they didn't fucking turn it into the interstate, but Jesus. Oh, yeah. Ooh. Ooh. 1v3, are you still here? Behold, the reason America has no sports culture. Oof. It's Dubai made out of concrete. Yeah, look. And this is where the LA Dodgers play, baseball team. A lot of stadiums will look like this. In fact, this is the standard for what sports stadiums look like. They're not in areas of town that you can walk to. In fact, the only local sports culture that a lot of places have is high school and college sports. Because you can sometimes, a college or a school will be in an area of the neighborhood that you can reasonably get to. Sometimes. To the extent that you can in America. Yeah, look, all the professional sports stadiums are divided into these massive parking lots. By the way, look, you can see here, that's how large an individual parking space is. Incredible. Phenomenal misuse of space. But yeah, that's why America doesn't have like local sports culture very much. And of course, it's also in LA, which is really fucking bad. I was looking mostly at the Sun Belt, but like, if you want to look at LA, we can look at LA. I mean, it's like, it's really bad. It's really bad. It's really bad. All single family zoning, low density. You can't fucking walk anywhere. It's bad. It's bad. It's really bad. It's really bad. LA is probably, look how fucking big LA is too. Los Angeles County. East Foxborough Stadium in Massachusetts has a commuter rail connection. Yeah, that's good. That's good. You do want that. Like, you want to see that. I wonder if it highlights the county or if that's only Google Maps. Can I see the, can't really see the, borders on labels. I don't think it shows, even though it has the same parking problem. Yeah. American Sports Stadium moment. I don't think it shows, the borders, but you see all of this is Los Angeles. So you see, like, you'll hear people talk about Anaheim, Long Beach, Santa Ana, Huntington Beach, San Bernardino. These are all parts of Los Angeles. That's all still LA. I remember seeing this when I was watching Dutch TV program, someone who's non-binary, see how it is to be in American cities at night nowadays. Such a good show. Really? Well, that's really cool. She visited many sports events that were all remote as fuck. Yeah, that sounds like America, all right. It's honestly shocking how, like, devoid of culture the ruling class has attempted to make America into, like, if that makes sense. They have tried to drive culture off of the streets of America to make room for cars. And in many ways, it actually hasn't worked because people fucking despise cars now. In many ways, they take them for granted, but people are not nearly as resistant as they used to be to projects of like urbanization. Look at that. Ugh. But yeah, like Compton, Torrance, Santa Monica, Malibu, these are all still Los Angeles. Like, people distinguish, like, that's how big Los Angeles is. It's so big that you would have to distinguish. Oh yeah, I live in San Bernardino. I live on Long Beach. I live in Torrance or Compton, right? Because those provide more of a resolution than Los Angeles County, which, by the way, I think is only home to like how many people? Let me look this up. Yeah, less than 10 million people. This city is this fucking size. Look how big this is. That is like, you can see it from space. You can see LA County from space, and it's not even 10 million people live there. Insane. She just walks up to random places and people talk with them about nightlife and how uncomfortable she feels now in the USA as non-binary. These are in, but it's mostly in English, of course. That's cool. I honestly, I feel like if there's any show like that, you know, I mean, you mentioned that they talk about like how remote night animals translate. Okay. You talked about how like they touched on the subject of America being super remote and like you can't fucking walk anywhere, but you know, It's always nice when people discover those horrors because every little bit of that contributes to the public will that builds up to change things like that. Because in spite of all of America's problems, or, perhaps in part because of them, people are trying to change shit, right? Like there have been areas that have significantly pedestrianized. It's been in very small ways, so it's hard for me to highlight them, but things have been getting better, kind of. Not fast enough. America's going to collapse long before these cities become like as functional as they should be. But it does give me hope, right? The polity of the United States of America will not survive the 21st century. Of that, I am certain, right? And I think any political scientist could reasonably predict this. But if cities continue to re-urbanize, New Orleans is actually another example of a rare good city in America. If cities continue to re-urbanize, then many of the cities in America may survive beyond the expiration date of the broader country of America. Certainly New York and Philly are surviving. Chicago's surviving. LA, maybe. Probably not, but like maybe. Seattle might survive, right? All of these cities that are cohesive units unto themselves, that have a culture, that have transit, that have like self-connectedness, these will survive the 21st century. They will become some of the great cities that will be talked about in the history books as massive achievements of society. The United States will fall apart faster. That's true. New England should just like split off. She once sat down next to some old conservative man who was working on laws against queer people and told him that only man and woman is a dumb thought. Based. Super based. Of course, for a lot of anti-queer activists and advocates and whatever, first of all, they're not really activists, right? There's no such thing as activism on the right. It's all astroturfed, right? So somebody went looking for that guy to fund a lawsuit, but like, or whatever they're doing. A lot of it is just psychosexual because their kid is queer and won't talk to them or something like that. And they view that as an act of spite against them because they don't think that their kid is human. They assume that their kid is an object to be owned and used by a parent or by a spouse, right? He fumbled trying to say the acronym as well. That's funny, but that's forgivable. I'm always super forgiving of people that fumble the super long queer alphabet soup, LGBTQ, IA plus, which lesbian, gay, bi, trans, queer, intersex, and asexual, I think, and then the plus is for extra. It was still funny. Yeah, it is funny. Anyways, I always go on a fucking tangent about urban planning. But since we're on Google Earth, I always get confused because it's LHBTQI plus in Netherlands. Yeah, in different countries, the acronym will be different. I just say queer because queer is a word that means different, and in the cultural context of the queer community, it means different in terms of sexuality and expression, and it's a pretty good all-encompassing term because no matter what you are in the alphabet soup of queer people, you are queer. You're different in some way. Yeah. Canada even has two S in front of the letters because in indigenous American traditions, the natives that were genocided by the Europeans, they had a phenomenon called two-spirit people, which were trans people. But because the language is different, the modes of expression are very different across languages and cultures. It's not quite the same as how we imagine a trans person, but similar concept. By how much is Canada better than the USA? I'd imagine they can't be worse. No, they're worse in some respects. They have some better cities, but no, Canada, if you look at Canada, there's a lot of suburban rot here too. In fact, the housing crisis in Canada is actually worse than the housing crisis in America. See, look, this is Toronto. Largest city in Canada. Same thing. Toronto does have trams though. Yeah, God, look, highways, 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 highways. Where's downtown? There's downtown. Yeah, downtown Toronto is actually a city, but that like, yeah, it's the influence of the United States and like the modernist, the Le Corbusier, after like World War II. It was like a phase of urban planning. A lot of European cities even did this. If you know about Dutch history, you'll know that the city of Amsterdam was not always as pedestrian friendly as it is right now. The cities in Europe also had these phases of car-centric development, and it led to a lot of pedestrian deaths. The difference is what Europe did, it was like, okay, that was a mistake. Let's re-pedestrianize, right? And a lot of them did that, with the exception of England, Germany, and the Scandinavian countries. Thank you. Well, to a certain extent, the Scandinavian countries did, but like where Europe saw horrifying numbers of pedestrian deaths and said, okay, we need to change course, America saw that and was like, nah, that's not enough. We got to double down. I'm serious. There was like a political movement about it in America too. It was happening contemporaneously in America and Europe, where people would lock hands and block intersections, be like, no, cities are for people, not cars. What America did in response to this was legalize right turns on red. Let's go back to Atlanta to show kind of like what I'm talking about here. See if I can't find that Strode again or something. Yeah, here we go. Here's a Strode. I don't know if this is the same one. Is this a stoplight? This is a stoplight. So if you look at these stoplights, you'll see there's a left turn lane as well. But what Europe did is it decided to like essentially de-automobilize their infrastructure, make it less car-centric. What America did was legalize right turns on red. This movement against pedestrian fatalities was happening at the same time as the energy crisis. It was like an opportune moment. And Europe was like, okay, it's clear that like all these signals are happening. We need to move away from cars. What America did was like, oh, okay, to save on fuel, it's now legal that if you're stopped at this light, you can make this turn here. If the light is red, it is legal for you to drive over the crosswalk and turn. This resulted in an 80% increase in pedestrian fatalities. This single policy change. It saved fuel, but it killed almost twice as many people. Nobody obeys that. It used to not be legal. They made it legal in the 70s to turn right on red. You know, there are some lights that have a sign that say no turn on red. But like, you see here, there's no sign. If there's nobody coming, you can just turn. Like this guy in this big fuck ass like child killer pickup truck. It's perfectly legal for him to make this turn right here onto that road. Right? If there's like nobody coming that way. This policy change in the 70s, single-handedly responsible for an 80% increase in pedestrian deaths. That is what America did in response to this. They made it worse. And now what I think is going to happen is America is going to, because of how much America is captured by the automobile industry, America is going to do everything possible to avoid making this any better. Because if that happens, then our only major manufacturing industry, I'm not joking, automobiles are our only major manufacturer, they lose their business. Essentially, you could kill the speculative markets by making things better, or you could keep the speculative markets alive and allow the whole country to die. If Atlanta doesn't substantially improve, Atlanta is not surviving this energy crisis. Birmingham, not surviving the energy crisis. Montgomery, Columbus, Macon, fucking Columbia, not surviving the energy crisis. Norfolk, Virginia Beach, hella not surviving the energy crisis. You know? But yeah, it used to be illegal. It used to be illegal to turn on a red light because it's a red light. You have to stop. You know, it's a red light. You got to let the people walk across the crosswalk, let the cars go. They're going the other way. You have to stop at the red light. You know? And then they were just like, if it's only pedestrians, then you don't have to stop. Like, legitimately, that's the fucking law. Even though also in the law, pedestrians technically have the right of way. Pedestrians technically have what's called the right of way, which means like you could just walk across the crosswalk. But obviously nobody fucking does that. You only see a chef cooking up Kentucky chicken when you look at the middle of the USA. Yes, this is how we learned in school. This is how we learned these respective states: Minnesota, Iowa, Missouri, Arkansas, Louisiana, is because it looks like a guy. What I did not know though is that Kentucky actually does kind of look like he's cooking something on the grill, and Tennessee is the grill. That's pretty funny. But yeah, we did know about like, oh, haha, he's like a chef. Louisiana, that's his shoe, and that's his pants, and that's his coat, and that's his head, and then that's his hat. You know? Super cute, funny geography things that I learned in elementary school. Whee! Fun fact, right on red in Boston is generally legal, but in Cambridge, the city next door, they made it illegal. That's based on Cambridge's part. We should make right turns on. In fact, I'm not even gonna stop there. We should just make cars illegal. Can we do that, please? Can we do that for all things other than like business purposes? For like a business needs to haul some shit. Sure, you can have a van or a pickup truck. Just ban cars. Fuck it. These things are not contributing anything to anybody's lives. Yeah, seriously. You need to get somewhere with rural infrastructure? Take the fucking bus. Come on. Like, seriously, if you see like some of the shit that America be building, let's take a look. This is somewhere that I have been on occasion. Let's take a look at rural Pennsylvania. I've been up this way during college. I think I had occasion to like go. I don't even fucking remember what I was doing. But like, if I go to where's Harrisburg? There it is. There's Harrisburg. Let's go. Here's Harrisburg. Harrisburg is the capital city in Pennsylvania. Yes, ban passenger cars. Look at this fucking shit. Look at this. So like you have the big suburban developments that are attached to cities like that. But then you take the highway out of town and then you just have fucking this. What the fuck is this? Why? Leftists are on the bus, those climate freaks. Then I think if conservatives think that way, I think they should kill themselves. Because I would rather they kill themselves than kill this country. Sorry, I'm sorry for being a American-loving patriot. I'm sorry for being a patriot who loves my country and wants it to survive the next 100 years. No, you can take the bus for your country. Shut up. Type shit. Like, look at that. See, look, here, there's like these town names like Siddensburg, which, by the way, these are both highways. You see number contained within a shape? That's a highway. Siddensburg. Oh, wow. A borough. What the fuck? What? This isn't a town. Isn't a fucking... Look at this. People live out there. How? The answer being with cars. Like, there's no fucking bus out here. Are you kidding me? There's no fucking bus. There's no sidewalks. Look at that. You think a fucking rural ass, fuck ass place like this has sidewalks? No, look at that. You have to walk on the shoulder of the highway. So jealous of how many trees y'all have out there, though. Netherlands is empty as hell. Nah. Does not make up for it. Besides, there's like coyotes and shit out there. There's some shit that will kill you dead in these woods. America is like Australia Junior in that respect. Like, what the fuck good are these trees if there's no, like, you get hurt in the woods? Oh no, I got poison ivy. Good luck finding a fucking hospital. At least y'all have woods. What I'm saying is it's not worth it. And it's like, Everybody thinks, man, I would love to live in the countryside. No, you wouldn't. You would love to visit the countryside. We're just farming simulator. Let's take a look at the Netherlands. Honestly, like, living in the city is so much more green than living in the countryside. The city has such a, like, better carbon footprint, as in, like, cleaner. We're just farming simulator. I want more nature. Bit of advice. Actually, my parents have been, like, traveling in Europe and stuff. You should take a trip to France sometime. See the French countryside. It's quite pretty. You know? Let's see. Let's see the countryside outside of, where's Reims? It's up here somewhere, right? I don't know why I'm doing. I have a search bar. Everything's better than the Netherlands when it comes to this. Yeah, well, you're better than everywhere else when it comes to cities. So, you know, go ahead, like, wipe your, I guess, like, go ahead in the meantime, wipe your tears with, like, the best fucking urban design and public transit on the planet. But, you know, USA is the only country that produces more than us. What, in terms of farming? That's actually pretty cool that the Netherlands produces that much. Okay, this is Reims. You go out from Reims. Oh, let's take a look at this. There's some woodland between the farmlands here. Yeah, see, there's some very pretty countryside outside of France. Let's have a look on this this here road. That's how much we farm. Yeah, and America has a lot of farmland. Oh, look at that! Look how beautiful that is. So if you're hungry for some countryside viewing, go to France. Go to the country next door. Least occupied countries by nature. Netherlands? Well, yeah, it's a small country in terms of, like, land area. You know? Yeah, the Netherlands is not large. Wait, what's this? Hold on. Do I spy with my little eye countryside? Or is that in Germany? No, that's in the Netherlands. I can go to all of Europe, lol. I just want our farmers to be deleted. Valid. I want your farmers to be deleted too. That's true. That's pretty true. Let's have a look. There's Google Street View here. What? There's public transit here? That's awesome. Oh, it got it on kind of a rainy day, but this actually does look pretty. The Veluve? There's good stuff to be had. Wait, urbanism type shit. Oh, yeah. Sorry, I keep getting sidetracked because I fucking love urbanism. Besides the baseballs, we only got a ton of small nature. Glad I lived in Drenthe, though. Yeah. Look, I mean, public transit is good enough. You could probably spend, like, a weekend in France for relatively cheap, if I'm being honest. You know, in America, God, it costs a lot just to do your daily shit because of how much you spend on fuel. But big nature guy, yeah, I did notice. If you ever, I would not recommend coming to America, but if you ever do, the Appalachian Mountains are quite pretty. Helps that we don't have deadly animals. Yes, that's one thing that Europe definitely has over America. Even in Appalachia, you have to be cautious of stuff like mountain lions. There are some big cats. Never go off alone in the woods or in the mountains. Not even necessarily because you'll get got by a serial killer or something spooky. No, you might get got by, like, a bear or a coyote or a wolf or a big cat or something. There'd be some fucking animals out there, you know? Warmer, less rainy Ireland or Iceland, basically. Iceland's nice. It's not a bad place to live. Now I want to actually talk about something that pertains to geography. This is the urbanism and geography stream, I guess. Now, let me see if I can't find the post. Here it is. Here it is. Goodbye, Google Earth. It has been fun, but now we got to talk about this. Speaking of the weather, the climate, the geography in Europe versus in America, big news. Mysterious cold blob in the Atlantic suggests the AMOC is weakening. This is the Gulf Stream current, right? A patch of ocean southeast of Greenland is the only place on Earth that is cooling. It could be a sign that the warm water conveyor belt in the Atlantic is slowing down. I think I talked about this a year or two ago, that as these scientists said, as soon as 2025, this current could start collapsing. This is going to have such severe consequences, such all-encompassing consequences. Even an expert climatologist would not be able to give you a good read on how much would change from this. They'd be like, it changes too much for me to say, right? This is responsible for basically all of the regular weather patterns that we experience in America, Europe, basically anywhere that touches the Atlantic, and by extension, anywhere in the world. This is the reason that the East Coast gets hurricanes. This is the reason that we get nor'easters in the winter. This is the reason that the Midwest gets tornadoes. This is the reason that the ocean on the East Coast is warm. This is the reason that the ocean near the West Coast of Europe is cold. This is the reason that Europe has such moderate and temperate weather. The reason we get tornadoes and hurricanes and all that sort of shit and Europe doesn't is because of this current. Right? Because the warm water makes conditions favorable for hurricanes to form. The warm water puts moisture in the air. Warm, moist air contrasts to cold, dry air coming down from the north in Canada. That makes nor'easters and tornadoes possible. That makes all sorts of weather possible in America that just doesn't happen in Europe, because in Europe, the cold water here acts as a regulating mechanism. It tempers the severity of weather in Europe. Sure, you get some, you might get some snow, but a lot of the times it's like, they don't necessarily get like the worst thunderstorms or hurricanes, whatever. That's very uncommon. Tornadoes too. If this changes, if this current breaks down, what's going to happen is this water is no longer going to assume that pattern. The water on the east coast of the US is going to be a bit colder. The water on the east coast, on the west coast of Europe is going to be significantly warmer, which means America is going to stop getting a whole lot of severe weather, but Europe is going to start getting some. Europe is going to start getting hurricanes, tornadoes, fucking nor'easters, nor'westers, Conditions are going to be favorable for all sorts of shit that will fuck up European infrastructure, right? And for both of them, and this is not to say like this is going to be good for America. Certainly, like it might be nice for some areas that the weather is like a little bit more stable, right? But at the same time, this is a current collapsing. Things are going to be unstable all around. And what do you think that's going to do to conditions for stuff like farming and resource gathering? This is going to destroy the global food economy more than it already has been, and more than it will be destroyed by the scarcity of fuel. This is going to destroy the food economy. There are so many crops, so much food that depends on particular climate conditions, in order to grow. Moving to New Zealand right now, don't bother. New Zealand's not immune for this either. They're going to get hit with this too. The super El Nino, New Zealand's getting hit by that. El Ninos are going to be worsening. The climate conditions are worsening and becoming more bipolar everywhere in the world. Imagine EF5 tearing up Metro Madrid. In fairness, the large European cities would likely be spared from EF5 tornadoes. And like EF4s, tornadoes of that size would likely miss a lot of European cities. The reason for that being the urban heat island effect. A lot of, as weird as it is, the urban heat island effect creates a microclimate so that even a lot of American cities in Tornado Alley are very, very infrequently, if ever, hit by tornadoes. Houston, Dallas, Arlington, the what is it? Is it like Arlington, Dallas, Fort Worth? Like that metroplex in Texas, because of the urban heat island effect. Tornadoes oftentimes don't form in that exact area. They'll form outside of it. They may skirmish along the edges, but so long as there's a city there, that sort of contrast isn't necessarily possible, right? Category 5 battering England, that is more realistic. Expect to see more hurricanes in Europe, for sure. Especially because England's very wet already, though it's worth mentioning, this current is also responsible for the humidity and moisture patterns that we see on the East Coast and in Europe as well. So England might not even be the one getting the hurricanes. That might be Portugal, Spain, or France. You know, places in Europe that were previously known for being quite dry might get unexpected amounts of rainfall. Everywhere is going to have the wrong amount of water all the time. That's the implications of this. You know? And unfortunately, perhaps worst of all, Florida would meet a less violent end. Because there wouldn't be as many hurricanes hitting America. Tragic, I know. The most tragic part of it. Florida would only slowly and gradually sink into the sea with rising water levels, rather than being torn apart by hurricane after hurricane as various subdivisions get destroyed, and the arrogance of the American homeowner suburbanite is exposed for its folly. Unfortunately, we're not going to get that. Not as much anyway. Though things aren't going to get any better. You know, insurance companies have already led a mass exodus out of the state of Florida. They're not coming back. So it's pretty bad. It's pretty bad. This is many to sort of break the veil really quick. We are in the midst of what various geological scientists, you know, geologists, ecologists, paleontologists, whatever, people who study things at a very large time scale. There's a certain consensus that has either formed or is forming that we are in the midst of what is called the Holocene mass extinction. The era that we're in currently is the Holocene. Some people say even the Anthropocene, because anthro means person, people. You know, we shape this ecological era more than any other animal has in history, in known like scientific history, right? And all of the weather patterns, climate patterns, instability, and species extinctions are happening at a rate that can only indicate that we are currently living in a mass extinction event, which is not necessarily unsurvivable. There have been mass extinction events in previous eras. I don't know, man. Those dinosaurs knew how to smoke some good stuff. That's true. I would, in fact, you would catch me, in fact, chuffing back a fat one with my man, the goddamn brontosaurus. We do chuff a fat one on occasion on the weekends. I did invent time travel to this effect. But yeah, like the as many right-wingers are wont to point out when you talk to them about climate change, there's still ice on the poles and stuff. Like the world's in a glacial period and all that, which is true. It is very unusual throughout Earth's history for there to be ice populating the polar regions, or for there to be ice naturally occurring anywhere on Earth. The problem is human industrial activity and various human activities are accelerating the end of this glacial age, right? This glacial age would not be over right now if it weren't for or it would not be ending right now if it were not for the actions of humanity. You know how long it takes for glacial ages to end? It takes hundreds of thousands of years. A short glacial age might last for 3 or 4 million years. We're only coming up on about 2 million or 3 million. You know, problem is humans. The problem is capitalism, the exploitation of environment. It's possible to live in this environment and not cause these sorts of disastrous consequences. The problem is the system. It is not people. But like pretty regularly throughout history, the end of a glacial period, if it's not a snowball Earth, right? There have been a couple of eras where the entire surface of the Earth was covered in ice and average temperatures plummeted to the -20 degrees centigrade. Outside of that, in non-global glacial periods, the end of that glacial period always resulted in a mass extinction because it was such a drastic change in climatic conditions so quickly on an evolutionary timescale that existing species, by and large, could not keep up with it. They couldn't adapt. Humans have a better shot than most at adapting to new circumstances. How do you get the system out of the people? How do you get the car out of the user? Easy. You bulldoze over them politically. You essentially, like, in the city, you make a city where people do not need to use cars. As a result, people will not use cars. And the people that like driving will all leave the city, or they will become that miserable old grandpa that grumbles about how back in my day we had the freedom to drive everywhere. The way that you get the car out of the user is you tell them to shut up. You say, okay, grandpa, let's get you to bed. And you don't let them have an influence on the direction of society. This is how we've dealt with reactionary forces to the extent that we've been successful in dealing with them for generations. Look at how racism is treated now, even with its modern resurgence, right? Like, it is still socially frowned upon to be racist. We didn't get rid of the race. Like, we didn't line up all the racists against the wall and shoot them. We told them to shut up. You know? Basically, shut up, old man, you're cringe. Let us live our lives. And they'll be happier for it, too. They'll grumble at you because they love to be upset at shit. They will be happier for it. Don't worry about that part. But yeah, the hallmarks of a mass extinction, as well as its prerequisite conditions, are all present. The end of a glacial period that isn't a snowball Earth. And it's gonna be rough. It's gonna be a rough time. I'm not even gonna lie. I'm not gonna hold you. It's gonna suck. But never kill yourself because cats are really cute and there's plenty of reasons to live, and learning is fun, and living in the city is fun. And I'm particularly remembering the one video of the deaf cat who has no idea how loud she is, and she melts my heart every time. And also, I have family that I love and friends that I love very much. So, you know, it's going to suck, but it's going to be great. Don't worry about it. Do worry about it, but don't worry about it. Yeah, that's my take on it. Somebody's fucking zooming out there. I don't know if y'all heard that. Or alternatively, okay, hear me out. Hear me out. It was briefly audible. Okay. Hear me out. For car users, I am struck with divine inspiration of how to take care of the car problem in society. The solution, the final we get in trouble for this. The final solution to the automobile commuter question: we relocate them all to New Jersey. What do we think? Are we in favor of this? What do we think? God fucking damn it. Well, if nothing else, you cannot accuse me of being all edge, no point. Why not somewhere else like Delaware? Delaware's a strong contender too. I would accept Delaware. We can relocate all of them to Delaware. Perhaps there's an argument to be made that New Jersey is salvageable and maybe even worth saving. But yes, we find a box somewhere, and we simply put all of the automobile contender for what? My proposal to the solution to car commuters is to relocate them all to New Jersey, or as Sparkling Image Car Wash astutely suggested, Delaware. We find a box, we put them all there. They don't need housing because they love cars so much. Just let them drive around infinitely. Move them to NL, duh. I would not subject the Netherlands to the hell that is car commuters. Unless there is the promise, unless you guys promise that you will treat them the way that the reactionaries treat undocumented immigrants. If you treat the car commuters the way that the right wing treats immigrants, then you can have them. You can take all of them. You know, there's so much space with them all on the farms, infinite flat area. That's true. Although again, I don't want to ruin the Netherlands with pavement. Parking space heaven. Put them all in Dodger Stadium. Put them all in Dodger Stadium. We'll have one. We'll have a fucking. You know how like Israel is the state where they put all of the the pedophile Hitlerites and like the military industrial complex contractors and the spy technology. That's like the box where they put all of that. We need to have the box where we put all of the car commuters, and somebody is going to have to sacrifice some stuff for that. Yeah, it's true. It's true. We're going to have one global parking lot where everybody just drives around infinitely. I think there's a vision there. I think we're cooking. But if we're moving them outside of the United States, you have to promise me that whoever takes them will treat them the same way they treat like brown people and immigrants. The phenomenon of ants following each other in the death circle. Yes, yes. We fucking you give them a circular racetrack or something, or you put it when they're on the box. They do the fucking death circle. Yeah, a ring highway. They keep like, okay, yeah, take this interstate and then like wherever you end up, but there's no exits. They just have to stay on the interstate fucking forever. Now that is the mark of a big brain, if I don't say so myself. Anyways, I didn't even, you know what? I even forgot the thing that I was going to show. I was going to show off in SimCity. I showed the other two regions that I was working on. I actually wanted to show the thing that I had been working on most recently, and then I'll probably end the stream after that. Sorry, I haven't been playing Mario Kart today. I've been streaming so much. I've been going through some shit with modding Mario Kart Wii. What will replace cars though? Submarines or furry fury fueled flamethrowers? I go with the furries. I go with the furry option, the nuclear option. Parentheses furries, because that'd be funnier. Yeah, I'd been having trouble modifying Mario Kart Wii, and in fact, I spent a lot of time. I spent a lot of time trying to figure out what was causing something to crash. I did eventually, because I'm very skilled at troubleshooting. I did manage to isolate the cause of my game crashing on like the character select screen, right? Because I was trying to add my custom skins to the custom skin system. That way they would actually show up. But went through the fucking grinder to do that. Not like the app grinder, the bad kind. Not the cool kind where you get to have gay sex. And the staff in the Retro Rewind server were so nice. In fact, they promised to address the thing that I was talking about in the next patch. And they even kept in touch with me, and I was like, thank you. Alliteration randomness maxing instead of looks maxing. Yeah, you just fucking Peter Piper picked a peck of pickled peppers. You try to invent a fucking crazier version of that. Except that one's actually a sentence. I don't know how you could top Peter Piper picked a peck of pickled peppers. That's like kind of hard. And we did actually you mentioned, like, you joke about teaching kids that in school. We actually learned that in school. One of the things I learned in elementary school when we're learning like how to talk basically is we learned how to say tongue twisters. One of them was Peter Piper picked a peck of pickled peppers. Now I want to show you what I've been working on in SimCity. It's not super far along yet, and it's not going to be as populous as my other cities. If I go to monitor 1 here, look at that. Looks really bland, right? But that's the point. I was struck with inspiration after watching the Backrooms movie. That is a crazy tongue twister. They have you guys reading that in school, famous Dutch one. That's insane. All right, the Dutch got us on this one. No, I had an idea after watching the Backrooms movie, because I had some awareness of like the Backrooms online. I'd seen some Backrooms videos like, oh, this is what these different Backrooms levels are about, etc. There are some Backrooms levels that are inhabitable. And I thought, since the Backrooms are like supposed to be an infinite procedurally generated mass, what if I made a city to resemble the Backrooms? Not necessarily in the worst way possible, right? If I wanted to make Backrooms hell of a city, I would go into painstaking detail drawing suburbs, right? What I wanted to do is make a city that would actually be livable, walkable, and traversable that you could feasibly find in the Backrooms. What if people tried to put their heads together and try to make an actual functioning community in the Backrooms? So far, I've got this one's a bit smaller. I'm not quite ready to show that one off yet, but this one I am ready. It uses exclusively low density zoning, with the exception of industry, because industry works a little differently. So at first glance, it will look like the absolute fuck ass morass that is an American city, right? But we will be looking closer to see what I've done with the place, right? So it's supposed to kind of have this weird liminal feeling, but you know, when you get down to the ground level, even though there's still a little bit of that unsettling quality there, it's supposed to be quite livable, quite traversable, quite hospitable. And how do I do this? Of course, with transit networks. Again, there is a railroad, which is like, it's heavy rail, so it's like not the best for transit. Gotta love that liminal feeling. Yeah, it's pretty cool. You know, this might be a little bit of an unsettling place to live compared to regular cities, but if you're in the Backrooms, something like this would be a very welcome sight, and I could imagine that like there'd be people living here. I think this tile is up to like 60 some thousand. There's a few thousand in the other tile as well. And like I said at the beginning of this, I did kind of destroy my game with mods, so it's going to take a little while to load. I also did some like modding myself. I added a new building style. I don't know, like the building style interpreter or whatever in this game is kind of janky, so it's iffy on whether or not it fully works. You know, I've had some trouble trying to get that to work completely, but yeah, there we go. You see here, I've got a stadium. SimCity actually does stadiums way the fuck better than real life. You just sort of walk in there. But yeah, look, you can see this all low density zoning. Blech, gross. It is really funny though. I think there's an Arby's somewhere here from a mod that I downloaded. Where is this? Oh, that's Party City. Party City is a real store in real life. There it is. There's the Arby's. We do have an Arby's in this city, which is very funny. But if you look a little bit closer at this otherwise low density, messy look of a city, and I use the query tool, look at that. Look how many people walk and take the bus. Look how many people. There's certainly there are some people that drive their car, but even with roads being the main like thoroughfares here, I do have a subway network as well. These are little subway stations. Look at how many people here use means of transit that aren't cars. These people don't even have to walk a full block to get to work. Look at that. This person walks just right across the street. This person walks down the block here. And I was like, yes, that is exactly what I wanted. How many use no clipping? It's hard to say for sure. For all we know, the doors on these buildings are actually fully cosmetic and everybody no clips into their work. Experts still aren't sure yet. But yeah, look at that. 17 cars, 16 subway, 9 bus, 7 pedestrians. Despite looking very weird and liminal and geometric, this is literally made up of a super block structure that I was testing out for the first time. It seems to be a pretty good success, though there are some things I still have to learn, obviously, about that. But like, most people here are not driving to work, which I think is awesome. It's been so fun. It's really fun in my eyes to get creative with cities like this. Yeah, you can see the yellow here is the subway. Look at that. This person takes the subway from all the way over here. They take the bus for 1 block. I don't know why. And then, look at that. You take the subway over there, no problem. No problem. Don't even worry about it. That's a lot of workers. Holy shit. Dude, look how many people work at this hospital. That's crazy. That's a lot of people. A lot of people work there. What about the high school? Look at that. This is why the query tool is so fun for me. What else do we have? What is this? What is this building? Kroger. Ah, that's a real grocery chain, by the way. Yummy statistics. Yes, waiter, more statistics, please. Statistics, yummy statistics. I'm so full of statistics. Can I have some more statistics, please? I'm hungry for statistics. An office building here. This one has the most car commuters out of any building that I've seen thus far. It's kind of crazy. Even the people working at Kroger, like none of them drive to work. Nutty. Oh, and also I think that's actually because, yes, okay, the higher wealth occupations, people will drive to more. Like when people have more wealth, they tend to drive more and use public transit less. Let me see if I can find one of these places. Medium wealth, medium wealth, medium wealth. Is there any high wealth? Medium wealth. I have a lot of medium wealth, like medium income people living in this city, which is interesting. Really? No high wealth persons. Huh. Game's auto-saving. I need to figure out, honestly, how to make the game less unbearably slow. Which there might not be a great way to do it because I just have so many mods. Who got money in this town? Who got money? Here's a high wealth building. All right, let's see where are people coming from. Oh, right, this isn't even helpful. I installed like a mixed income mod. So now like people of all income levels can inhabit all sorts of dwellings. So like there can be high wealth people living in low wealth buildings. Not very many though. Ah, there's high wealth. What do we got? Pedestrian. Oh shit! Finally found a high wealth house and nobody's driving. Saying who got money like you robbing the whole town. Yeah, who got money in this bitch? Who got money? Yeah. Imagine you're a resident of the SimCity and your mayor starts hovering over you with the query tool. All right, who got money? God, that would be really funny. It'd be the strangest day of my life, probably. A lot of people take the subway. But yeah, this is actually really nice because, like, I think this is actually an important proof of concept too. Obviously, there are many ways in which SimCity is not very representative of real life. But one of the ways that it is that you do not have to, like, having low density zoning is not an excuse to have a city that is not walkable. Like, having single family housing and like low rise developments is no excuse to not have a walkable city, if that makes sense, you know? It's not like there's no apartments. I think I saw a few Yeah, there's some apartment buildings here, right? Like yeah, to have your town completely change over day. What? It's kind of interesting too, where all the commercial buildings are. There's like this blue gray tint, so you can kind of see these are all the commercial buildings, and then the green of like the lawns and trees and stuff is more where the residences are. Then you got the farms over here, which are a little bit more brown. I think that's really interesting to see that color, that sort of color distinction from the air. It applies to real life too. When you see an American city from above, when you have like developments that are very low density, you can tell the green and gray, where you see the gray of the road, the green will be where the single family housing is, and then the gray will and the white will be like offices and stuff. Yeah, somebody here starts a cult like we're being controlled by a fucking disembodied mayor in the sky. It's the Matrix, and I'm like, shit, they're on to me. you know. Also, for people who might not be super familiar with urbanism or the way that cities work, just because there is green space in the lots of these homes, does not mean that they have a greener carbon footprint, right? Cities that are not very dense, this still isn't the greatest city, right? Cities like this still have a very bad carbon footprint, right? Because it's like a not very dense use of space. It takes a lot of resource, a lot of water to maintain a lawn like this, which is not very well represented in this game, you know? Um, and it also requires a lot more travel time. Just whether it be by car or by bus or by train, it requires a lot more time in transit to go someplace because things are not as close together, right? So while the city is functional, it is walkable, it is easily traversable by transit, it's still more spread out, So ideally, what is this again? Ideally, a city would have medium density as its like zoning type, like up to and including maybe 10 stories, anywhere from 4 to 10 stories is sort of what you should be aiming for in adding like city developments and stuff. That helps keep things at a human scale while densifying enough to make things efficient. 100K channel points. Hey, congratulations. Nonetheless, I'm very proud of this city. And it's not done either. I intended to fill out this whole tile with these super blocks. You can see that like each block is 9 by 9 and each super block is 3 blocks by 3 blocks. So it's like all perfectly geometric, which can be a little unsettling if you look down one of the main streets. But Earth is flat, I knew it. Yeah, when you're debating a flat earther and they start getting mad at you and then they just say, take them to the edge. Like, excuse me? They're gonna throw me off the fucking edge? That's crazy. All flat earthers walk your world. Yeah, that's true. All the flat earthers are actually contained in this game. Yeah, make them walk the plank. You fucking arguing with a flat earther and then they just say, all right, fuck it. Make them walk the plank. Unfortunately, you don't really see any of the funny flat earthers, like the flat earthers that fall into one of those really funny archetypes anymore, because of all of them just came like Jewish question conspiracy theorists. All of them just became Nazis, which I suppose that's the logical endpoint of all conspiracism anyway. But it's sad to see the funny haha lizard person conspiracies go the way of the dinosaur in favor of, I guess, again, like everything is socialism or barbarism, and they chose barbarism. Anyways, this has been a super rambly and yapping stream where I talked about urbanism some more, talked about more urbanism, looked at Google Earth, looked at SimCity, talked about more urbanism, talked about the Gulf Stream, talked about climate, and then talked about urbanism again. I had a good time. Hopefully you all had a good time too. I'm loving this tank top, by the way. I've been God, being transitioning and, well, growing boobs. You have to like get new clothes sometimes because you just grow out of your old ones. And this tank top actually feels super nice. You do you. You're yapping YouTuber. Thank you. I love yapping. Anyways, I am going to go find somebody to raid. And I will bid you all adieu. Have fun. I'll see y'all next time. Who doesn't? Very true. Oh yeah, I didn't even talk about Graham Plattner, but he won his primary like internal party election. So we're gonna get another social democrat on the ballot. And the best part, this guy's running in the state of Maine. The mainstream news fucking hates this guy because he's not like completely subservient to the military industrial complex. They literally like fucking tried to manufacture. They were like, oh no, you know how YouTube drama slop channels will do like, oh no, how will they defeat the allegations? And it's like they never say what the allegations are, and they never say who brought any sort of allegations because they're fake. They made them up for drama points and whatever. Actual like regular ass news outlets are doing that to Graham Plattner, like multiple allegations of sexual misconduct, and then they like never say like, oh yeah, the such and such women have accused him. Like I know sometimes they say anonymously, but like the New York Times is like, we couldn't corroborate the existence of these allegations. Like they just fucking made them up, and it's really funny. And that much more reason to stick to the news outlets that actually do talk about shit. So anyways, I'll see y'all later. Graham Plattner's literally invincible. Another classic New England W. You love to see it, especially if you're a New Englander. And I'll see y'all next time. Thank you so much for watching. Make sure to like, comment, subscribe, even donate to support the channel. It would really mean a lot to me.